hello everyone, and welcome to the college football edition of Proline, the longest running sports handicapping show in America. I'm John Cranton, direct from Las Vegas, joined by Jeff Sott. He runs Las Vegas Sports Services. Today we're going to take a look at the 2015 SEC East and West. First, let's tell you what we have going on for the specials for football season. Jim Feist has an early bird special. Get all 4 weeks of the NFL preseason. That's 4 weeks, including his preseason game of the year. You get all 4 weeks for $29 just by calling the number on your screen. Make sure you sign up before August 2 because the rates will change. And Jeff of Las Vegas Sports Services, you also have a NFL preseason special.
Yeah, you get the entire preseason in the NFL, all the five-star players at LVSS for just $19. Just call the number on your screen. You get the entire preseason, all the five-star plays. Preseason actually is one of the best times of the year to make money. A lot of handicappers will tell you that, and it's true. You don't want to miss out. Get the entire month of August, the entire preseason, all the five-star plays. Just call the number on your screen. You get it off for just $19.
Okay, make sure you take advantage. Let's get into this SEC. Got the East and West here. You know, the SEC had won 7 consecutive national titles before Auburn came up just a few seconds short just 2 years ago, losing to Florida State 34-31. And now we have the Big Ten as the champions with Ohio State. So you wonder about possible changing of the guards. And Jeff, what's that note you had about the bowl games with these conferences?
Well, the bowl games last year, the SEC was 7-5, but the East, which is considered to be a little bit weaker than the West, was 5-0 in the bowl games, and the West was 2-5. The SEC is kind of maybe a step down from where they used to be right now. They're not quite as dominant, and a lot of teams have very inexperienced quarterbacks. So right now, the SEC is not a shoe-in for like the national championship game, just like last year when they didn't make it, when Ohio State beat Alabama and it was a Pac-12 versus Big Ten. So the SEC, I think, just a little bit, not quite as dominant as they've been the last decade or so.
All right, let's get into the SEC West. We'll start with the powerhouse program of Alabama. They have 15 college football national titles. That is number 1 on the list. So how do they look for 2015?
Well, they only returned 2 on offense, 9 on defense. 3 of the top players are gone. Receiver Amari Cooper, running back T.J. Yeldon, and quarterback Blake Sims. New quarterback will be Jake Coker. He was thought there was going to be the starting quarterback last year, but he was beat out by Sims. And in limited action, he had 403 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Senior running back Derrick Henry is back. He averaged 5.8 yards per carry. Some inexperience at wide receiver. Junior Chris Black returns, and the rest are. And the rest is led by sophomore Ardarius Stewart. Offensive line returns 2, but one of them is one of the best in the country, 6'6", 325-pound Cam Robinson, a left tackle. Defense was number 1 in points allowed in 2012, 4th in 2013, 6th last year, 18.4 points per game. Front 7, once again, has plenty of talent and depth, led by nose tackle junior Ashad Robinson. Secondary could be a problem. Landon Collins is gone, but Cyrus Jones is the only returning starter, but he's recovering from a hip injury so they expect him to be back, but right now he's still recovering from that injury. As far as the schedule, the Open versus Wisconsin, a game being played at Dallas. The non-conference games are against Middle Tennessee, Louisiana Monroe, Charleston Southern. I tell you, all these teams, it's hard to find a team anymore that has a challenging non-conference schedule. These teams, the ones that are going for the national championship are going for the undefeated season, and the ones that don't really have much of a chance for the national championship want to at least make a bowl game, so they just schedule 3 cupcakes and make sure to get the 6 wins. So right now, I think it's one of the biggest problems of college football right now. And home conference games are Ole Miss, Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU. On the road, they got Georgia, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Auburn. The SEC, as I said, is not quite as dominant. They have some teams there that, that Alabama should win pretty easily. I'll go with the 10-2 season for Alabama, John. But with this schedule, they could go 11-1. But I'll go with 10-2, John.
Yeah, that's what Las Vegas is saying too. You look at the college, who's going to win the national title? Of all the SEC teams, Bama is in the top 10 at 8-1, and that's it. The next closest is the Georgia Bulldogs at 18-1. I'm going to take a look in this division at what I think is going to be a resurgent Texas A&M Aggie squad, because they were 8-5 last year, had trouble covering numbers at 5-8 against the spread because their offense was so good. Speed-oriented offense, but the defense struggled, and the offense had problems as far as the quarterback being suspended. But overall, This program that Kevin Sumlin runs is terrific. They've recruited 3 straight top 10 recruiting classes, and for 2015, the Aggies have 8 starters back on offense, 8 on defense, and even with their problems last year, this team averaged over 35 points per game. That was top 30 in the country. 305.5 yards passing was the 12th best passing in the nation. Plus, they can run the football 150 yards per game. They return a sophomore quarterback, Kyle Allen, who stepped in midway through the season. 16 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, over 61.5% completions. And then they were a dog in the bowl against West Virginia, won the game 45-37. Got a good running backfield with Trey Williams. He's a senior, 6.9 yards per carry, and Trey Carson. So the top 2 running backs are back. And then the wide receiver core for the Aggies are absolutely loaded. You got 6'4" junior Josh Reynolds. He had 842 yards, 13 touchdowns. There's a whole crop of depth behind him with Ricky Seals-Jones and Speedy Knoll, among others. So this offense is going to be one of the best in the country again. Now the defense for the Aggies, that's where they've had some problems the last couple of years. Last year, they averaged 28.1 points per game allowed. That was 77th in the country. However, Sumlin has really been focused on recruiting the last 2 years talented defensive players, and I see this Aggie defense getting very good in a hurry with some of the guys they brought in. In addition, they bring in a new defensive coordinator in John Chavez. This guy spent 6 years at LSU running one of the best defenses in the country. He was highly sought after, and he inherited some talent here. You got junior defensive tackle Hardwick Walker up front, and sophomore defensive end Myles Garrett is terrific. He was a freshman All-American last year, and the schedule for this team, the only road games are at Arkansas, Ole Miss, Vandy, and then they end at LSU. So it's not a bad schedule. They get Alabama and Auburn at home, and they were a 23.5-point underdog against Auburn last season. Won the game 41-35. In fact, they were 3-3 straight up in ATS as a dog. So Kevin Sumlin's got this program moving in the right direction with a lot of talent. I think they're going to have a 10 or 11 win season. Might even be a bit of a surprise team to win this division. All right, Jeff, a year ago I thought that Auburn was probably going to take a step back from after their near national title run. So what does Gus Malzahn have up his sleeve for this fall?
Well, they were 8-5 last year, but they were only 4-9 against the spread. And Alabama was 5-9 against the spread. Both those teams were overvalued. This year, you know what happens a lot of times. It turns around the next year. The line makers make adjustments, bettors make adjustments. So Auburn might be a team to go on this year. They return 6 on offense, 8 on defense. Nick Marshall's gone, so junior Jeremy Johnson will take over at quarterback. Limited action, Johnson threw for 3 TDs, 0 interceptions, 436 yards, but he completed nearly 76% of his passes. Tigers have to replace the SEC's leading rusher, Cameron Artis-Payne, and it looks like junior Jovan Robinson and sophomore Rock Thomas are the 2 top candidates to replace him. Thomas was the star of the spring game. The Tigers lost 3 of their top 5 receivers, but they were lucky that senior Dakil Duke Williams decided not to go to the NFL. Williams has 730 receiving yards and averaged 6.2 yards per catch last year. Only 2 starters are back on the offensive line. Defense, the big news is Will Muschamp is back as defensive coordinator. Also, defensive end Carl Lawson returns after missing last season with a torn ACL. 3 starters are back in the secondary, and although he gave up a lot of big plays last year, overall Auburn gave up nearly 400 yards per game. So clearly the defense is going to be need much improvement there, and hopefully Muschamp will be the answer. So I think Auburn should have a better season last year. The schedule, they opened versus Louisville and a game being played at Atlanta, and then they have 3 automatic non-conference wins: Jacksonville State, San Jose, Idaho. Home conference, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Georgia, Bama. Road conference, LSU, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. I'll go with a 9-3 season for Auburn, but I think the defense would be much improved this year, and that means a better performance.
Well, I'll take a look at LSU Tigers. They're off sort of a subpar season at 8-5, but a lot is expected from Les Miles' crew this year because you got 8 starters back on offense and 9 on one of the best defenses in the country. Surprisingly, they're only 9-7 in the SEC the last 2 years, but they really are primed here to have a much better campaign. First of all, the offense last year averaged a somewhat respectable 27.6 points per game. However, it was not balanced at all. They were one of the best rushing teams in the country, 25th with 224.5 yards rushing per game, and the ground game looks outstanding, but the passing was just terrible. Last in the SEC. In fact, they're 116th in the nation with just 163 yards passing per game. So that is the area that they want to work on. They do have two quarterbacks returning who hopefully can improve. You got the junior quarterback Anthony Jennings, 11 touchdowns and 7 picks, but he's going to be pressed by this sophomore quarterback Brandon Harris, who had 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And then you've got one of the best offensive lines in the country. You've got a sophomore running back, Leonard Fournette. He was one of the top high school running back prospects in the country, and he didn't disappoint as a freshman for the Tigers with over 1,000 yards rushing, 5.5 yards per carry. The wide receivers are experienced and there's talent there. They just haven't had a good quarterback to get them the ball, but they are led by junior speedster Trayvon Durrell. He had 758 yards and is certainly a weapon, as well as Malachi Dupree. And there's very good depth and experience, but they have to solidify this quarterback position. No problems at all with the LSU defense, though. They were 5th in the nation in points allowed, 17.5 points per game. They do have a new coordinator in Kevin Steele, inheriting one of the best defenses in the country and in the SEC. The front line for the Tigers should be dominant. You got senior defensive end Danielle Hunter. You got a linebacker junior Kendrell Beckwith and sophomore tackle Davon Gocho up front. And then the secondary, very talented with junior cornerback Tre'Davious White and sophomore safety Jamal Adams. If you remember 2 years ago, this defense held Johnny Manziel to one of his worst games as a college pro. He was a college player. He was 16 of 41, 2 picks and under 230 yards passing. The schedule for the Tigers, we're going to know how good this team is early because September they really have the big games. You look at week 2, they're going to be traveling to Mississippi State. That's September 12th. And then on week 3, the very next week, they're going to be hosting Auburn. Their road games for the year, LSU will be at Mississippi State, Syracuse, South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss. And the revenge game is early in week 3. That's the Auburn game I mentioned because Auburn just crushed them a year ago, 41-7. So September is going to be a lot of fun for LSU Tigers fans. Wouldn't be surprised to see this team going under the total with this great defense, which they did last year at 8-5 under the total. All right, Jeff, Mississippi State, they had kind of a miracle season for much of 2014. So are there any miracles left here for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, that's it. I think the miracles are over. They're back to rebuilding here. Mississippi State, all those years that Dan Mullen was there, he kept building and building the program. And then last year they thought it would come all together, and it did for a while. They're number 1 in the country, but then they lost 3 of the last 4 games, and now they're back to rebuilding again. They returned 5 on offense, just 4 on defense. Last year they were 10-3, 7-6 against the spread, but those numbers are going to change this year, I think. They lose. They're lucky that Dak Prescott's coming back. If he had gone to the NFL, it would have been a disaster because they lost a ton of talent everywhere else. They lost 3 starters in the offensive line. Running back Josh Robinson left early for the NFL, and but junior wide receiver De'Runny Wilson does return. So there's a couple of good things there, but it's going to be another long haul, I think, for Mississippi State, maybe for the next year or two. Defense, Manny Diaz, the new defensive coordinator. Tackle Chris Jones is the only returning starter on the line. They lost 3 starters in the secondary. Junior Benikas Brown anchors the linebackers unit. Bernard Drake McKinney left for the NFL. So they lost a lot of talent there, and I just don't see it's going to pay up. I mean, another year or two before they're back up to where they want to be again, if then. The schedule, they have Southern Miss, Northwestern State, Troy, and Louisiana Tech, so that looks like at least a 3-1 mark there. Home conference, LSU, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi. Road, Auburn, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Arkansas. They could lose all 4 of those road conference games. So they could probably, with those, as I said before, they'll probably, with the non-conference wins, they can get to 6 wins and get a bowl game. But other than that, that's probably the best they can do this year, John.
All right, I'll take a look at the Ole Miss Rebels. They're off a nice 9-4 season. The defense was phenomenal, number 1 in the nation. Not surprising, they're on a 10-2 run under the total. However, Coach Hughes frees his team. They're going to lose quarterback off to the NFL, and so Bo Wallace. So you got not 10 starters back on offense, despite that, and 8 starters back on defense. Offense was very productive and balanced, 28.3 points per game and 155.5 yards rushing per game. But they do have to address the quarterback situation first, and there are 3 guys who are fighting for that position. You got sophomore quarterback Devontae Kincaid. He only threw 127 yards last year. And you get the sophomore quarterback Ryan Buchanan, again 75 yards, very little experience. The guy to watch, though, this fall is junior college recruit Chad Kelly. He was a former Clemson quarterback and transfers in. He's 21 years old. He's a mobile two-way threat, had a good spring. Hugh Freeze did say that there's going to be a battle right up through early September. He might wait, but Kelly seems to be the guy who kind of makes the most sense for the Rebels. Keep in mind, Ole Miss coming in to the new season on a 2-4 straight-up 1-5 spread run. They did not have a very good finish to last season. There are very good weapons around whoever wins this quarterback battle. You got senior running back Jalen Walton, 5.5 yards per carry, and the wide receiver core for the Rebels really deep. You got senior Cody Corey at 558 yards. You had junior wide receiver Quincy Adobia and 6'3 junior LaQueen Treadwell. So you've got a lot of targets to throw to, as well as a top all-SEC pick in Evan Engram. In fact, 4 of the top 5 targets return, along with the entire offensive line. So it should be a good offense for Ole Miss. And the defense, #1 in the nation last year, 8 starters back, so this could be one of the best defenses in the country and in the SEC again. The defensive line should be one of the best, with the Nagimshi brothers, along with senior defensive end C.J. Johnson. He's a very good pass rusher. And they got sophomore All-American defensive end Marcus Hayes. This kid was a force as a freshman with 7.5 sacks. Secondary does lose a couple of their top players, actually, but they do have return of cornerback T. Shepard from an injury. So all in all, this team looks very similar to last year. Balance on offense and a powerhouse defense. When I look at the schedule, it's kind of easy early until week 3. They're going to be traveling to at Alabama. They'll probably be 2-0 for that showdown. And then the road schedule for Ole Miss is actually difficult. You got the game against Bama. They're going to have to go to Florida, Memphis, Auburn, and Mississippi State for the rivalry game. So, boy, I don't know if they can top the 9 wins based on that road schedule, but they should be a strong all-around team, especially if Kelly emerges as the quarterback position. All right, before we get to the SEC West, if you want to subscribe to Jim Feist's YouTube page called Sports Betting, you'll get updates on all of Jim Feist's videos each day. You just click on the link right above us, and it's free to do that. And also, if you want to go to the website, jimfeist.com, just click on that football right above me. That is a link to the website. There are free picks, sports wagering articles on both the NFL and college, betting tips, top plays, as well as specials that Jim has each day and each week.